to the STB as in, but this shit has got me fucked up, podcast, because I literally did this over multiple times. I don't have my boy Izzy here with me. That's why this lighting is shit. The sign with the couch with the fucking painting just looks tacky. I have my prop here, though. It's my dog. He would just be crying the entire time if I had him in his cage for this. Let's just hope that he's a good boy, because the last few takes, he was not. And that's probably one of the reasons why I had to stop. But I'm fucking happy to be here. Like, look, my hair is getting closer and closer to the podcast's cover art. So we're on our way. You know, I just might need to get like a boob job or something to really make it accurate. But overall, all is well. It's Friday. This is not sponsored, but we're drinking. This is like my favorite. Oh yeah, that's good. Anyways, so last episode, I had one of my good friends on there with me, Corbin. He got to hear that I was a stripper, and then he also got to hear about the feet story, which is just fucking nuts. But now we're getting into like just me again and talking about my past stories of when I was dancing. If you guys are new here, I was a stripper for 4 years. Never told anyone that I know. I kept it from my family, my friends. I was basically living like a Hannah Montana life. And now I run my own business, which I started while I was dancing. I'm full-time, like, working for myself. I don't dance anymore. I stopped about 6 months ago. And while I was dancing, I would write every night. Every night I would go to work. I'd come home and I would talk about, and this started a little bit later, like I would put the exact amount of money that I had made. And then I would talk about it in the early stages, which is what we're in. I don't mention the amount of money up front. I usually talk about it throughout the story, but I don't always. Usually you'll have an idea, but I usually don't go on to specifics until later. But yeah, so we're early in, and I would write these blogs or these little like reflections, and I would never look at them again. I would just write them to talk about my night, to be able to have someone to talk to, which was myself, or I guess my Google Doc. And I would just talk about it, and I wouldn't hold anything back. I didn't know if I would ever release this type of content, but here we are. It's coming. So let's go ahead and just get into it. Now we're going into Cinco de fucking Mayo. And this was on May 5th of 2019. So, what was it? Yeah, 2019. So, I had already had what I thought was my best night ever, which I had talked about in a past podcast, which was over 4K. What I thought would be my best night, or what was my best night ever at that time. My first year in 4K in one night, I was like, oh my God, I'm the best there ever was. I'm the best fucking stripper. Like, literally just on a high horse, which come on. 4K is good, okay? But let's talk about Cinco de Mayo. And this is a short story. Again, I'm recording this for like the third time, so I've read this story. I have a pretty good idea on what I'm going to talk about. So it's short, so I'll probably do another one. But this one is, this type of situation has happened to me time and time again. And I'm lucky that this guy had paid me like he said he would. But there's a lot of times where guys will say that they'll pay something, or like, oh, you know, outside of here I'll pay you more, or we don't have to go into the room. I'd rather just pay you that out on the floor, like on the main floor, instead of like paying a bunch of fees inside a room, like bottle fees or whatever. Oh, I'll pay you outside of here. Just hang out with me. And then hours go by and you haven't made a fucking dime. So luckily this guy wasn't, you know, he was putting his money where his mouth was. Not a ton, but, you know, it was a good little night. May 5th of 2019, what day was that? Was that like a Monday? I don't think it was a weekend. I would have said something, or I wouldn't have spent so much time with this guy. It must have been slow. But let's go ahead and get into it. That Cinco de Mayo money ain't no joke. Tonight, I got handed over a rack plus hundreds of ones by a customer that never took me to a room. The game of the club is so crazy because what you may be wanting to make in your head could be completely different than what the customer is willing to pay. Have you ever had a customer be like, well, why would I go to a room and give the club a majority of my money when I could just give it to you out here, aka like the dance floor, the main part of the club where people sit, not a room? That's a perfect scenario for you as a dancer, but it doesn't matter unless he actually puts his money where his mouth is and gets to spending. And that's how you know I was early on as a dancer, because the simple fact that I said, that's a perfect scenario for you as a dancer. I guess you could say maybe, like, if your club takes a good amount of fees or like a big portion of your room money, then yeah, getting the money out on the floor is great. You know, if you can make thousands of dollars on the floor, perfect. But the great thing about rooms, even if your club is taking a large percentage, which when I read through this, I think this is the club that ended up being my main club. I think I was still at like the main club. But before they changed the rules, which they changed the rules a few years ago, where now we get to keep 100% of the money. But before, we would only get like what? Well, it included the bottle fee. Yeah, so it would be like, we went into a room. Let me finish. Let me just this is how my guy was tonight. I show him a room that'll end up costing him around $1,100 for the hour, and $600 of it will go to me. Back in the day, before they changed the rules and all the money went to the dancers, or you got to pick your own price, the total of what it would cost to be in that room for like an hour with a girl was $1,100, and they would say, oh, that includes a bottle, so it would be $1,100. And then $600, whatever, however much would go to us. And then the other portion will be like what he pays for like the bottle and shit. So it's still similar now. It's just we get to pick our own price. So if I want to charge $600 for an hour, I can do that. Or I can charge $1,000 for an hour. Or I can charge $2,000 for an hour. Whatever the guy's willing to spend. But back to what I was saying about like, oh, that's how you knew I was young into the game. And I hate that. Hopefully the fucking lighting is good on this camera by the time I look. But goddamn, I'm looking on my phone because I can see it. It just looks so fucking dark. I'm going to have to fix this for the next episode. But I digress. That's how you know I was new into the industry, because even if your club takes like a portion of your money, like let's just say 50%, right? And you don't get to pick your own price. You have to deal with it. So let's just say you only get $500 an hour. Like that would, if we're going like US average, all the way from like the butt fuck of nowhere all the way to like Vegas, Miami, those prices, the average in the US, if I'm just throwing out numbers, is probably $500 an hour for a stripper. On average. Now, there's clubs where it's $2,000 an hour for a girl, and all that money goes to her. And then there's clubs where it's 300 maybe. I think I've worked at a club where it was like 300 back in 2018. So, you know, it really just depends. That average is probably a little bit higher now that I'm thinking of it. But again, I digress. Even if your club is taking a large amount of money and you're not making that much in an hour, like in an actual private room, it's still good to go into the private room. As long as you feel comfortable, then absolutely. Because in a room, the guy is usually going to have to buy alcohol, or he's going to feel like he has a better connection with you, or it's going to be more intimate, and you're going to have a better chance to get more than 1 hour. If you're out on the floor, yeah, like you're not really having to do as much, you're not having to entertain as much, and you could probably make just as much, but that's only good for like 1-2 hours. You won't have a guy giving you thousands of dollars for 3 hours to hang out on the floor. Like, he won't even be there for 3 hours. Like, he has options to get distracted, to get a high tab without, like, you know, you not knowing. Like, next thing you know, the waitress is coming over, like, oh, here's your tab. And then he's fucking arguing with the waitress and you haven't gotten paid yet. It's just so many things can go wrong if a guy only agrees to pay you on the floor. And then, let's just say, this guy agrees to pay you $1,000 out on the floor. And then the time comes for him to pay the fucking piper, and he doesn't. And you had given him some dances, you know, you guys had agreed to $1,000. You spent time with him, and then he just says he's not going to pay. Like, let's say he gave you a couple $100 up front, but he still owes you $700 more. And he says, oh, I'm not going to pay. You guys get in one little argument, maybe like you piss him off a little bit. He uses any reason for him not to pay you. And then you go over to management. You say, This guy owes me $700, $800. We agreed that he'd pay me $1,000. He only paid me $200. I gave him dances. I spent time with him. Well, why didn't you get your money up front? I've heard it time and time again. And the only reason I say that, and it fucking sucks to hear, is because I've done it. I've done that dumb shit where I trusted somebody. Then the liquor flows, the personalities clash. It just turns into a fucking shit show. Not saying that that's always a bad thing, like, not the shit show, but like going to the floor and getting paid that way. Sometimes you got to read the room. You got to read your guy. You got to know your guy. But I'll pick rooms. Nowadays, rooms all day, every day, over anything. Rooms over anything and everything, literally. I digress. Let's continue. So I show him the room that'll end up costing $1,100. $600 of it will go to me. I knew he didn't want to spend that much, so we went back downstairs. I told him earlier in the night it's $20 per dance. This is back in 2019, so $20 per dance. I let him know that when he was throwing a bunch of ones. So I think I mentioned in the beginning, like, I had a bunch of ones, and he just had a shit ton of ones, and you know, it's still $20 per dance. I was greedy like that. Like, I was like, no, you're gonna have to pay me per dance, and all those ones are just for fun. Like, those are tips, right? I had a lot, bro. Literally, okay. So I know I've read this like before I recorded this specific episode, but I forgot that it even said this after what I just read. I had to let him know that the ones were only a tip, not the actual dance money. Fucking wow, love it, ladies. Play your game right, because at the end of the day, it is your game. About an hour in, we were around $200 in dances. This is before I showed him the $1,000 room. So I had already basically like earned $200 before I showed him the $1,000 room upstairs, and then we came back downstairs. So I was telling him, like, the largest number in my head that I was going to charge was like $400, like, to be out on the floor and just like kick it for a little bit. But then when I took him to the room and he said he'd rather give me the $1,000, I threw that $400 out the window. So I was like, yep, $1,000 it is. As dancers, our time and effort is worth so much more. So don't be afraid to ask for it. Getting him to hand over that rack was not easy. You know what? I honestly feel like I remember this guy. I don't know why. I always like, I remember like very specific moments when I was dancing, and this guy, I feel like I would have talked about it, so maybe it's not him. Like, I had so much fun with him. Like, he was just overall like such a fun guy, just very like easy to talk to, easygoing, just liked dances, wasn't fucking weird. Maybe this isn't him because I'm not talking about how great the connection was on paper. But anyway, getting him to hand over the rack was not easy. It took a lot of finessing, for real. But it ended up working out because that's what he owed me overall for the 4 hours I spent with him. Jesus fucking Christ, Ruby. $250 an hour, though. I mean, I can't be mad, right? Like, $250 an hour. I mean, most people don't make that, right? But as a stripper, if you're a stripper, you're like, the fuck? You $250. You could have made that in all those dances. But really, could I have, though? You never know. But, you know, you take what you take, okay? If the guy isn't going to give you what you want, just take what he's giving and leave, right? So it's like, if he's not going to give you exactly what you want, whatever he's willing to give, take it, as long as it's not like a total waste of your time, and then leave. It's not worth the arguing back and forth battle if it starts taking up too much time. Hope this helps. Secure the bag. Ruby. I think I'm going to do that as just one episode. And I hope you guys don't mind that I'm literally talking to you about this, but I think that this is good. I think that this is a good point to like stop for just one episode. It's going to be really fucking quick and easy, but that was a good one because the first time I recorded this shit, I was just like kind of running through the motions, trying to get used to the podcasting because it's been so long. But absolutely, like, this is, looking back at all these like blogs and everything, is just, it just reminds me of like, I had the knowledge, but at the same time I didn't, like, and I feel like you either have it or you don't as a dancer. Like, you learn as you go, but the ones that I feel like really succeed already have like a good amount of like street smart and hustle prior. Like, if you're lazy prior to stripping, you can develop a hustle, but I just don't feel like it would be as strong as someone that comes in with the hustle and hustle's even harder. It's like you're always going to be behind. So if you're thinking about dancing, or if you're currently dancing, or you're just trying to get your bag up, you're trying to get your senses better, it's a matter of going in on a consistent basis and learning and trying to use this time that you're in there working towards hopefully a bigger goal than just stripping, that you need to be reading the room. You need to be analyzing people. You got to be paying attention. Because a lot of girls, I feel like and I've done this, is just like go into work and make your money, go home. Like two separate worlds. You don't even like live in the same world when you're at home, but then when you're there, it's completely different. So just being able to adapt and get good at something. So it's like you want to get out of the industry, you want to go and do bigger and better things, you want to make your bag so you can fucking dip and work on other things that you're passionate about. Well, you got to get good at this shit. The faster you can get to the entire bag, like a big bag, the quicker you can leave. And that's where I'm gonna leave you. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate anyone that's new here and anyone that's been here, anyone that has even knows me that's listening to this. I love you and I appreciate you. Make sure to subscribe, comment, share a like. You can fucking comment. Bro, the hate comments that we get is almost I love it. I fucking love this shit. So bring on the hate, bring on the fucking shitty comments. Let's go. Either way, I appreciate you guys. Secure the bag always.